Imran Khan was removed from office last month. We discussed that as and when that happened after losing the vote of no confidence in Parliament. He alleged then that it was part of a US-backed plots in collusion with his successor. What can you tell us about how things have progressed since then and how these protests have come about, and particularly this march? What is happening on the ground towards Islamabad?
Well, after his ouster from power, he has been attracting massive crowds in Pakistan. And as we speak today, he was supposed to bring what he called millions of people on the roads in Islamabad. He wanted to lay a besiege of the capital, Islamabad, to force the current government to hold general elections. The current government, which has been tainted with the corruption charges and being pro-US, it has tried to contain the number of the protesters who could have possibly entered into Islamabad. There was a violence across the country. There were scenes of pitched battles, and police had placed shipping containers almost on all major highways to prevent these protesters from coming into Islamabad. Partially, there is a success story, but at the same time, it has come at the cost of arresting hundreds of activists of the former ruling party. And more importantly, the Pakistan has literally come to a grinding halt. With the government is so much fearful of the former prime minister that it has itself blocked the roads to make it sure that no one from the PTI enters into Islamabad. But again, it has backfired. The people have managed to come to Islamabad. A significant number of the supporters of the PTI, they have already entered, and others are removing the blockades on their way. But certainly, these are the people who are the die-hard activists of the former ruling party. When it comes to the common people, they need a smooth environment, a peaceful environment to join this protest. That is not happening, and it won't happen until I think the orders of the top court are implemented to allow the people to join this protest. There's a bigger game which is being played in Pakistan, and that is what the former ruling party has blamed, that it is some sort of a convergence of Western interest by the pro-US political parties, the powerful military, and the US, because of which the former prime minister was ousted from power, and now there's a lot at stake. If the government holds a fresh general elections, the greater possibility is that the former prime minister Imran Khan would re-emerge on the political scene again, and he would win the elections. That does not bode well for these pro-US political parties, because they are already tainted with the corruption. They are facing advanced prosecution, and they could be convicted on money laundering charges. And also military, I think they are the bigger player in this politics. And they don't want to basically, allegedly they have understanding with the Americans. And the Americans were quite unhappy with the former prime minister. And I think because of the combination of these factors, now we have seen pitched battles on the ground, and it is not something which is attainable. These scenes are sending a very negative message to Pakistan's economy. And if the situation persists for the next couple of days, I think it will be difficult for the government not to accept the demands of the former prime minister to hold fresh general elections.
Well, of course, everybody wants to see peace on the streets across Pakistan. Not least, I'm sure, Shehbaz Sharif, you're suggesting he may have miscalculated. Have things changed in the last month? The vote of no confidence against Imran Khan was to enable Sharif to make economic changes that would benefit the economy. Has he managed to do that? Or is the fact that things are very much the same as they were before, I'm assuming, bolstering Imran Khan's case against this change?
Well, the economy has gone from bad to the worst. The rupee has further devalued. This government has not been able to put the economy back on track, something they were claiming they will do it. The problem in Pakistan is whichever the government is in power, they have to pursue the IMF agenda. And whosoever pursues IMF agenda, that means more price hike, that means more devaluation of rupee, and that means more taxation on Pakistan, that means more high interest rate. So that means this does not bode well for the common people of Pakistan. The former Prime Minister Imran Khan was trying to basically move towards Russian bloc. He wanted what he wanted to purchase a relatively oil on a cheaper price. That could have given boost to Pakistan's economy. But the trouble is that Pakistan has been completely trapped into the American economic system. Americans, as go by one famous book, No Exit from Pakistan, the writer said that the Americans don't want Pakistan to economically develop. It wants to keep Pakistan dependent on itself. The fear is that this is a nuclear country, and if it is allowed to economically develop, that means it would lead the Islamic bloc, which was after Ottoman Empire's dismemberment after World War I in 1913. The Muslim all over the world, they are in disarray, they stand disunited. And I think because of these long-term strategy of the Americans, they feel more comfortable with the politicians like the ones that we have who are tainted with the corruptions. Their properties are in the Western destinations, and they can easily be compromised. And that is what the former Prime Minister Imran Khan has been propagating to the people. There has been massive, overwhelming anti-American sentiments in Pakistan. The latest survey says that at least 72% Pakistanis consider the US as their enemy. And there are genuine reasons for it. 70 to 80,000 people of Pakistan, they died because Pakistan participated in American war against terror in Afghanistan. And because of spillover effects, there was a retaliation. And I think if there are fresh elections, certainly there is a greater possibility of his return. But again, there are also local politics within the political parties and the military establishment. They don't want him to return to power because there is a fear within the military that he's inching fast towards the Chinese and Russian bloc. And they think they want to strike a balance between having a relationship with the USA and the China. I think there is a bigger part of the problem, and that part of the problem is that the military has some kind of orientation towards the USA. It is not understanding the bigger picture that is happening, the bigger developments in the world. The Americans are no longer a superpower. It is one of the great power along with Russia and the China. Mm-hmm. And probably the former Prime Minister did understand that, and that is why he wanted to have some kind of independent foreign policy in a country where the successive government compromise Pakistan's geostrategic interests and economic interests just in return of their petty personal and political interests.
Well, I just want to pick you up on that and maybe explore that a little bit by asking you two questions in one. Politics obviously is a very difficult thing to manage for any country at the best of times, and it's a minefield, so to speak, for any politician to move forward. You've just introduced the idea of the politicians having to face the realities of the situation. Now, on the one hand, with this march towards Islamabad, there's the threat that if things don't remain peaceful, that Imran Khan might be arrested by by Sharif's government. So that's one question. On the other hand, there's the reality that because of the war in Ukraine following Russia's invasion, any country's relations with Russia at the moment taint them in the view of the world. That's a reality. So we've got, from both sides here, we've got realities that need to be faced to move forward. Does Imran Khan or does Shehbaz Sharif have the ability to face those realities and to bring the Pakistani people along with them? Where do you see this going?
The current political leadership I think they don't have that political insight. Then they have the track record, and they had faced two scandals. One known as the Memogate scandal, another is known as a Dan leak. These are the two terminology we usually refer in Pakistan about two scandals involving the geostrategic interest of Pakistan. And the punchline of those scandals are that current political leadership, they were allegedly involved in having some sort of a connivance with Americans, and they wanted to contain Pakistan's policy behind the scene to support Afghan Taliban who were fighting against the Americans, and also contain some sort of back and support to in Indian disputed Kashmir region, which is a disputed region. It has to be settled down as per UN Security Council resolutions. And that is something which was perceived in Pakistan, that these political parties have played Pakistan's key strategic interests. Even in one of the scandals known as Memogate scandals, the People's Party, as it was the government, they agreed to allow Americans' military foothold on Pakistan to hunt down militants and freeze Pakistan's nuclear program. This is something which is seen within Pakistan's military, that these are the anti-state elements. This is what they call it. And now the current military chief, he has brought these political parties in power. So I think not everybody within the military is happy, and my understanding is that within the ranks and file, there's a huge support for the former Prime Minister, also because of the fact that he helped Pakistan to create conditions where Americans had to leave Afghanistan, because the Americans' target was Pakistan's nuclear weapons. And this is well-known policy of the Americans, that they have already said time and again they want to take out Pakistan's nuclear weapons. And many people in Pakistan believe that it is Israel which is operating behind the USA. You may recall they had carried out attacks on the nuclear installations in Iraq in mid-80s. And they don't want any Muslim country to possess a nuclear weapon. And that is the reason we have seen that according to Edward Snowden, this is a CIA contractor, some 6-7 years ago, he made disclosures. He said that the Americans are spending $26 billion every year. This is CIA's black budget on one thing: where are Pakistan's nuclear weapons? Where Pakistan has concealed them, and where Pakistan has provided shelter, as it was a then case to the Afghan Taliban. So I think in that context, the military, the journalistic people, the many military journals and many officials within the military, they don't feel comfortable with these political parties, because they have the track record of what many believe compromising Pakistan's key geostrategic interests in this part of the world.
Well, a very complicated political situation. Javed, I want to thank you for joining us today and helping us to understand what's happening right now and the broader picture of the politics behind it. Thank you so much for joining us here today on A News. Thank you.
Thank you. The growing tide of anti-Israel sentiments. What you see behind me is just tip of the iceberg of what is happening in the country. More than half of $52 billion black CIA budget is spent on espionage network in Pakistan. How would you handle it?
The US has looked upon Pakistan as an ally at one point, and then as an enemy at the same time.
That is going to be the first legal reason on the basis of which he is going to be instantly ousted by the Supreme Court of Pakistan.
Joining us live, Javed Rana, who's an expert on politics and geostrategic issues.
In the world politics, which is not being driven by any moral principle, it is being driven by the hard geostrategic realities. In a broader picture, more countries would aspire to have nuclear weapons.